being here this morning. I'm not going to speak too much. I'm going to be playing a few clips. Program's going to be about a half an hour. I'm very, very grateful. I had not even planned until the last moment. It's my bad. I suddenly realized that the Sunday morning class would be July 2nd, and it would be the day, the anniversary, third anniversary of Ellen passing. Instead of my talking a lot and possibly just blabbering on, what I've done is I've brought together parts of the Yahrzeit we did 1 year after Ellen passed away, an opening 4-minute clip, plus the 15-minute eulogy that Max Bernstein delivered and spoke on the time of Ellen's burial. I've got that and one other piece. It'll be 30 minutes, I promised, a sort of kind of time frame. I see among the people that are here are people that Ellen loved very, very dearly, and some of whom even have moved. As I'm looking around, everyone, Andrew Sitzer, I know he's moved from one part of Irvine to another part of Orange County, and then Nina Varkel has moved on to Texas, and let's see, I see the Hurwitzes are moving on to Florida. Basically, I'll turn, as they say, I'll turn off the lights on the way out. It's so wonderful to see so many of you, and Professor Medoff is here as well, a dear friend of Ellen's and mine. Anyway, I'm going to stop blabbering and we'll begin. Thank you again very much for being here. And for those who will be leaving, it's okay. It's not an insult to me. For those who are here only for the memorial, if you want to leave after about half an hour when we're finished, before I do the 30-minute remaining period for the class, that's okay. Here we go.
אני מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח אני מאמין בביאת המשיח אני מאמין, אני מאמין, אני מאמין, אני מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח אני מאמין, בביאת המשיח, בביאת המשיח אני מאמין.
Mitzvot Hu yivarech echotza v'yes hakalo Hu yivarech echotza v'yes hakalo
And at the end of a beautiful, for those of you who took time from Father's Day, hope you have a wonderful Father's Day as well. Thank you again to my Loyola Law students. And
Baruch Hu, watch over this holy The rabbi and Rebbetzin had a direct hand in positively influencing my Yiddishkeit and encouraging me to make Aliyah. Today I will share Rabbi Fischer's hesped, or eulogy, and a few former members of his community will share a few words as well from Ellen. Beforehand, I would just like to say a few words from me and my family. My whole family feels that we lost a very dear, close friend. Ellen meant so much to us. Over the years, she hosted my family in her home over many Shabbatot, including hosting my parents-in-law and wife when we got engaged. Ellen was witty, full of wry humor, and one of the kindest people that we ever met. What we will miss most about her was her love of life and her love for her family and friends. Ellen would extend herself and go out of her way to do anything for anyone in the Bernstein family, as she demonstrated repeatedly. She welcomed us all into her home without hesitation, an example we strive to emulate in our own homes now. Our hearts are broken over her loss. I'll now deliver over the hesped that Rabbi Fischer wrote and requested me to read. In the 1500s, there was a very wealthy Jew in Krakow, Poland, who was perceived to be an unmitigated miser. He never seemed to give charity to anyone. As a result, he became known famously as Yossele the Miser. And yet, when he died, suddenly a crisis befell all the poor Jews in the shtetl. Each had been finding anonymous envelopes left at their doors every Thursday night for years, always with a note on it reading Likvod Shabbat, in honor of the Shabbat. Each envelope was just enough cash to assure that each poverty-stricken recipient family would have enough money to make it through the week. And everyone soon figured out that the person they had berated as Yossele the Miser had been the most generous man who ever lived, because when Yossele died, the envelopes stopped. It is said that when Yossele ascended to Shamayim, to heaven, upon his passing, his soul's joy upon entering the sanctuary with Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah was reduced by one aspect of deep sadness. Even in heaven, there were no poor people in Gan Eden. There no longer would be anyone to whom Yossele could give tzedakah to brighten their Shabbos, their weeks, and their lives. Rebbetzin Ellen Fischer was a regular kid, a simple girl born to an honorable, noble, decent, ethical, working-class family in Binghamton in upstate New York. Not many great Jewish leaders come from Binghamton. Ellen worked hard in school, got good grades, even graduated second salutatorian in her high school class. Her parents were the most traditional family at the local conservative temple. When the temple management decided to move the congregation to the fancier, ritzier part of town, they increased annual membership dues and instituted a mandatory building fund. Ellen's parents were just not positioned to support such a move, so they left the temple and joined the local Orthodox shul, Beth David. That meant Ellen would now be in the Orthodox Youth Movement, NCSY, and no longer in the conservative temple group. Ellen became an Orthodox girl with gusto. Ellen Groh would go to her grandparents for Shabbat lunch, and then would spend the rest of Shabbat day with her Binghamton NCSY friends. She loved NCSY conventions, where cool madrichim, or youth advisors, with long hair and guitars, would play Hebrew folk songs and zmirot, and everyone would dance and sing at kumsitzes. All of the gifts and skills, the passions and loves that would define Rebbetzin Ellen's life were now starting to display themselves and take root. Ellen went to Syracuse University, the best regional college in upstate New York, and she graduated 4th in her class. She ate her meals at the kosher food plan that brought all the Orthodox students together. That is where she met her first husband, and the son of Holocaust survivors who had been in the Warsaw Ghetto and then escaped to fight with the partisans. Her husband pursued a law degree, so brought Ellen with him to Los Angeles, where he attended law school. They ended up in the Valley Village community of the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles, and they became active in the Yahrzeit congregation. Meanwhile, Ellen was developing a career. She once had spent summers packing potato chips for Frito-Lay and remembered having to take long showers to get out the feel of oil. Later, she became a secretary at an insurance company where salesmen harassed her because she was beautiful and they could get away with bothering her. She finally went to her boss crying and he put an end to it. But Ellen aspired for more. Rebbetzin Ellen saw a job announcement at UCLA's Audit and Advisory Services, and she applied. She was hired and became a certified fraud examiner and a certified internal auditor, a real CIA. She rose to become manager of investigations, investigating allegations of white-collar crime like fraud and embezzlement. She became a star in her field. University deans consulted her. Crooks feared her. One of her cases became so famous that it was written up in the Los Angeles Times. She became a member of the editorial board of the main magazine in her professional field. Her write-up of that famous case became the first chapter in the leading textbook in her field. But even as Rebbetzin Ellen was shining on her way to a sterling 31-year career as manager of investigations at UCLA, a whole nother side of her was waiting to emerge. Full of energy, a fabulous dancer, a singer with a voice so sweet that her high school choir teacher told her she had perfect pitch. Ellen also wanted to touch people's lives religiously, and she wanted to have Shabbat guests that she could cook for. She certainly already had so many friends in the Yahrzeit community, people with whom she could sing in shul and dance on Simchat Torah, people for whom she could cook when they would visit for Shabbat meal. Ellen loved to cook, and she was a great cook. The best kosher caterer in Orange County asked her for some of her recipes. But Ellen did not yet have a larger world to cook for, to sing with, and to dance with. She still did not have a complete outlet for all of her gifts, her religious passions, and her greater Jewish aspirations. That all started to change on February 27th, 2000, when she accepted a phone call from Rabbi Dov Fischer. Ellen's first marriage had ended after 21 years, and Rabbi Fischer's had ended after 25 years. On that night, they talked for 4 hours, each with a sore throat, croaking like two frogs in a Budweiser commercial. 3 nights later, they met for dinner at 7 p.m. They started talking about their respective humble working-class family roots, their shared values, their commitment to centrist Orthodox Judaism, their dreams for the future. 3 hours later, at 10 p.m., the waiter came and asked, "Are you two going to order anything at all tonight? They're about to close the kitchen." That first night, Rabbi Dov and Ellen found themselves deeply in love. It was just a matter of waiting a few days before telling each other, because neither one wanted to seem unbalanced. For the next 20 years, Rav Dov and Ellen became inseparable. They found that they liked mostly the same things. Rav Fischer agreed to watch an occasional cooking show on TV, and Ellen would let him watch baseball. They both loved Seinfeld and Srugim, but they were particularly devoted to Judaism, to Torah, to spreading love, and to caring. They reached out wherever they could find the need in people's hearts to be approached by a Rav or Rebbetzin. When Rav Fischer, who had become a top-notch attorney specializing in complex business litigation, told Ellen that he wished so much that he could leave law practice and return to being a Rav, Ellen encouraged him to make the change. She told him not to worry about the money. When Rav Fischer told her that he no longer could bear the daily practice of law, but instead wanted to teach law, Ellen said, Whatever makes my Dov happy is what makes me happy. When Rav Fischer explained to Ellen that he had a passion to write on secular, political, and Jewish religious issues of the day, Ellen said, "If that makes you happy and fulfilled, if that is what you feel called to do, then do it. And don't worry about the money. Once the publications realize how much you offer, they will pay you. And if they don't, all I want is for my Dov to be happy." And Rav Fischer's new pursuits opened the door for Ellen to realize her own passions and life dreams that this little girl from Binghamton never imagined possible. Their home became a center for Torah. Every week, more than 100 people came in and out of their home, whether to attend the Tuesday night Chumash class, the Thursday night Talmud class, Sunday morning women's advanced Torah text class, the Friday night minyan, the Sunday morning minyan, or to participate at the Friday night Shabbat dinner group of 15 young professionals ages 28 to 45. Individuals came to the house for pastoral counseling. Boys came to study for bar mitzvah, girls came to learn Rashi, Hebrew, and davening. Prospective couples came for prenuptial sessions. Rebbetzin Ellen also taught Kala class to prospective brides. Teens came to learn Gemara or Navi, the Book of Prophets, with Rav Fischer, to start learning some conversational Hebrew to prepare for their planned Aliyah moves to Israel. Couples came to discuss difficulties at home. In each and every way, Rebbetzin Ellen was at the center of the shul and the programming. On Tuesday nights, after 2 hours drive home from LA to Irvine on the jammed 405, she set the table and took out the cookies and crackers for Chumash class. On Wednesday nights, while Rav Fischer taught law school, Rebbetzin Ellen shopped for Shabbat cooking. And on Thursday night, while Gemara class was going on, she was in the kitchen cooking a magnificent 4-course meal every week. For soups, she might be making her fabulous homemade chicken soup or vegetable soup or lentil soup. Then there was gefilte fish. Then the main entree might be her brisket or her London broil or her kokavin chicken or her roast beef. There would be her lakshan kogel or her broccoli kogel or her 3-color vegetable kogel. She always included a vegetable. And then dessert. She was an amazing cook. Rav Fischer quickly figured out that people were coming to his Shabbat table not for his teachings, but for Rebbetzin Ellen's cooking. And once they were there, Rav Dov and Rebbetzin Ellen would lead with the singing of Zemirot, Shabbat table songs. With Lisa Pearl, who became one of Rebetzin's most valued friends, as were Judy Lapine, Barbara Walensky, Denise Fitzpatrick, Ruth Book, and Marlene Schiffer, everyone would sing for an hour, ending with benching. There was not a facet of the shul where Rebbetzin Ellen was not central. For Sunday morning women's class, she laid out a huge brunch, and then sat and participated in the intellectually rigorous 2-hour class. When people came for meals, she was there at the sink, towel in hand, to guide newcomers through the Netilat Yadayim, blessing recited while washing before eating bread. Before Hanukkah and Purim parties, she would sit on the phone all day, making dozens and dozens of phone calls to assure a great attendance. At the Pesach Community Sedarim, she co-hosted every Seder with her husband. These were dreams she never even knew that, as a girl from Binghamton, she could dare to dream. When she asked Rav Dov early during their courtship, "Will you allow me to have regular Shabbat dinner and lunch guests during our marriage?" he responded, "Let's go out right now and buy as many pots and pans as you can keep busy." They proved to be an amazing couple. The same sense of humor, similar inside references. As Rav Dov has said, it would be narcissistic to say that no couple ever loved each other as much as we, but it definitely can be said that no couple ever adored, admired, and deeply loved each other more than we. Even in that, they were both sticklers for English grammar. When watching TV, they would correct the wrong grammar on the screen. They loved watching Arrested Development, Shark Tank, Downton Abbey, and Better Call Saul. They loved movies like Fargo and The Producers. They loved driving 20 minutes to the kosher-certified Krispy Kremes for a donut and coffee, or spending an hour at a coffee bean. On special occasions, they would drive an hour each way to Los Angeles for dinner at Shiloh, and they both loved their steak rare. Yes, they differed a bit on desserts. Rav Dov loved the gooey ones, chocolate mousse and chiffon pies, while Rebbetzin Ellen loved nothing more than a piece of kichel with sugar on it. He also loved key lime pie and pralines and cream ice cream. But more than anything else, Rebbetzin Ellen and Rav Dov loved each other. At the Friday night Shabbat table, she would not allow any other person, even those who helped with the serving, ever to serve the Rav's soup except for her. She adored him and he adored her. For 20 years, he annually celebrated Telephone Day on February 27th with a different telephone-related gift each year. And during the past 3 years, Rebbetzin Ellen accompanied Rav Dov in the car every Wednesday for 2 hours to Los Angeles and then another 2 hours back to attend the 4 hours of law school classes that he taught. She would sit in the back of the classroom, reading a book about one of the American presidents, and whenever Professor Fischer would forget a word or a joke, he would ask her and she would fill it in. As their 20 years rolled by, it became even clearer that Rebbetzin Ellen actually was a tzaddiket, a righteous, holy woman. She used her beautiful singing voice to draw people to the love of Shabbat. She used her incredible dancing skills to engage women into dancing at weddings, Simchat Torah, at Ufrips, and at bar mitzvahs. She used her cooking skills to draw people to class and to Shabbat. She used her brilliant mind to teach Torah, sometimes in a group setting, sometimes in a one-on-one setting. Her beautiful face and smile did not have to be used. It simply drew people in. Her laughter was infectious. Her energy was so boundless that both her stepson Aharon and her husband called her the Energizer Rabbit. She had the most amazing long-term memory. Once it was in her head, it was locked in. A few weeks ago, when someone in the Fisher house saw a beautiful picture of their Hawaii honeymoon, someone asked the Rav who took the photo. He answered, "Who knows, it was 20 years ago." Rebbetzin Ellen, overhearing the exchange, softly interjected, "It was Ted the bus driver." And it was. And she was a most remarkable daughter. Every single morning for years, she would wake up at 5 a.m. Pacific time so that she could daven a complete morning shacharit prayer service and still FaceTime her father, Mr. Robert Groh, by 8:30 a.m. on the East Coast before he would begin his day. She loves her father so deeply that every Motzei Shabbat or Saturday night, she would call the Jewish home where her father now lives to check that he was all right, since she could not call that morning because of the rules of Shabbat. So now, this beautiful human being, a gift to so many hundreds who came to know her well, ends this segment of her beautiful, holy soul's eternal journey to Gan Eden, for paradise, in Olam Haba, the world to come. Few people whom we ever will encounter will deserve it more. But when she arrives, despite all the eternal rewards that surely await her as she merits benefiting from the light and luminescence of the Shekhinah, or God's omnipresence, she may feel a tinge of sadness because there will be no one in Gan Eden to cook for, no one to telephone for a shul program, no soup to serve her husband. But her soul will find comfort because there surely will be singing. There surely will be Torah. There surely will be a need for a soul that has a memory that can grasp all of eternity. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu watch over this holy woman's neshama, guide it through Gan Eden to elevated regions, and may our Rebbetzin Ellen be a Melitz Yosher, an advocate for us here in the halls of paradise. May her soul be blessed forever. Amen.
People, as the words that were said inspired all of us.
I'm going to sing you a song that is dedicated actually to my late wife.
Colin.
It must have been cold.
There in my shadow. To never see sunlight on your face. You did your best to make me shine. You always walked a step behind. I was the one with all the glory, while you were the one with all the strength. Beautiful face without a name. I never once heard you complain. Did you ever know that you're my hero? And everything that I'd like to be. I could fly higher than an eagle, 'cause you are the wind beneath my wings. It might have appeared to go unnoticed, but I have it all here in my heart. I want you to know I know the truth. I would be nothing without you. Did you ever know that you're my hero? And everything that I'd like to be. I could fly higher than an eagle. You are the wind beneath my wings.
I want to thank everybody for being here. I promised you it would be a half an hour. Ellen meant the world to me. I'm very grateful to my wife, Denise, who I don't know what it's like when you marry someone else and then you're in a situation. I think it speaks for itself. Denise was very close to Ellen, and Ellen adored Denise, and I want Denise to know that she's loved by everybody here, and recognize the challenge of coming into a picture where so many people remember and love Ellen. I'm grateful to all of you for continuing to remember Ellen. I'm going to close now because I promised 30 minutes before beginning our regular Sunday abbreviated class. So the transition is going to be, we always begin the Sunday morning class but we've been going on 2 months now, about 10 sessions, the rise of Israel. And each session, we always begin with Hatikvah. So I'm going to change the screen now to the Hatikvah, which will allow some of you who are here primarily for the memorial and not for the class to exit gracefully. The Hatikvah I've chosen every week. I choose another Hatikvah that has special meaning and is unique. And this particular one is played at the walls of Jerusalem by violins that were saved from the Holocaust. Jews in Auschwitz who were forced to play in the Nazis' Auschwitz orchestra. Many of you know about it, those of you who know that piece of history. Someone put together a program called Violins of Hope, where he undertook to start gathering violins that he could find from the Holocaust, whether played by Jews in the orchestra, others that simply had been owned by Jews who died during the Holocaust. And a number of those violins were gathered together and were brought to Israel for this particular rendition of the Hatikvah. After the Hatikvah, I'm going right into my Sunday morning class for the remaining 30 minutes or so. So again, I want to thank everybody who came and remembered Ellen with me and with Denise this way. Very grateful. And I'm very grateful that she walked these streets of Irvine and walked 20 years of life with me. She really, that's why I put the lyrics up on the board when the fellow was singing the song. She really was the trick to anything good that came out of me, and it brought me back to being a rabbi after my career as a lawyer. I could not have done it without her, and I could not have been my very best without her. She really brought out, and she was always a step behind, and she just was in there in the shadow of the words of the song. And it's the reason I did not put up the Bette Midler version. I wanted it sung by a regular person. I wanted the words to speak more than the artistry of the singer. Again, thank you for being here.
The British had designated May 15th as the last day of the mandate, the last day that any British troops would remain within the mandate's boundaries. The Arab states surrounding the mandate vowed to attack if the Jews declared a state. Much of the world, including the United States Secretary of State George Marshall, urged the Jewish government led by David Ben-Gurion not to declare a state, warning that a much larger Arab army would defeat it. Ben-Gurion was convinced that this was a moment in history that could not be missed, and he convinced the Zionist executive to declare independence on the afternoon of the 14th, the 15th being Saturday. The ceremony was to take place at the hall of the Israel Museum on Rothschild Street in Tel Aviv. The hall was packed. In the front row sat the members of the Zionist executive. All were there except Chaim Weizmann. At 4 p.m., everyone rose to sing Hatikvah. Then Ben-Gurion began reading from the hastily drafted Declaration of Independence.
אנו חברי מועצת העם, נציגי היישוב העברי והתנועה הציונית, ביום סיום המנדט הבריטי על ארץ ישראל. ותוקף זכותנו הטבעית וההיסטורית ועל יסוד החלטת עצרת האומות המאוחדות אנו מכריזים בזאת על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל, היא מדינת ישראל.
After he finished reading it, the declaration was adopted unanimously. Hatikva was sung again, and Ben-Gurion declared the state is established. In 30 minutes, the most momentous event in modern Jewish history was over. Within hours, the United States had recognized the new provisional government, and by dawn, surrounding Arab armies were attacking. On that day, the Israeli army consisted of 30,000 troops with no armor or other heavy equipment. Its air force was but a few Piper Cubs. Though all this would change in the coming weeks, in those first days of the war, the regular Arab armies held an overwhelming advantage in terms of men and material. The Arab armies invaded on all fronts. In the north, the Lebanese army seized the border crossing of Malkiah. The Syrians attacked in the area around the Sea of Galilee and advanced on Kibbutz Degania, where they were turned back. The Iraqis attacked across the Jordan River near the town of Beisyan, but were forced to retreat. They then moved their troops into Samaria, where they took up defensive positions. The most dangerous advance was that of the Egyptians. That army divided itself into two columns. One headed into the Negev desert and up through the Hebron hills towards Jerusalem. The brigade heading towards Jerusalem was stopped on the southern approaches to the city at Kibbutz Ramat Rachel. The second column advanced along the coastal road towards Tel Aviv. For 5 crucial days, the army was delayed by the defenders of Yad Mordechai. Next, they encountered Kibbutz Negba, which they eventually bypassed. The Egyptian forces continued on to where Ashdod is located today. An attack by a few Israeli Air Force planes convinced the Egyptians that the Israelis might be stronger than they thought and they should stop and re-equip. On May 29th, the Israeli army launched a counteroffensive, which ended the Egyptian advance and the threat to Tel Aviv. One other army invaded, the Arab Legion of Jordan. The Arab Legion was the best equipped and trained Arab army. The Legion was commanded by experienced British officers. Fortunately for Israel, the Legion was relatively small, with 4,500 troops. It had been hoped that the Legion would stay out of the war completely. Secret negotiations had been taking place between the Jewish agency and the Hashemite King Abdullah. But the king ultimately decided that not joining the Arab states would make his position in the Arab world untenable. On the day of Israel's independence was declared, the Arab Legion captured the Jewish settlements of the Etzion bloc, located between Hebron and Bethlehem. But the critical battle was for Jerusalem. On May 28th, the outnumbered and outgunned defenders of the ancient Jewish quarter surrendered. The western portion of the city, however, was successfully defended, but it remained under virtual siege. As a result, grave problem faced western Jerusalem's and Jewish inhabitants: hunger, thirst, and lack of arms. The road from the coastal plain to Jerusalem had been blocked since the beginning of the war, when the Arab region had occupied the Latrun fortress, having received it from the British. Latrun stood on an especially strategic elevation that overlooked the road to Jerusalem, at the point where the road began its initial ascent from the plain up through the mountains. Whoever controlled Latrun controlled the access to the Jerusalem road. Beginning on May 25th, repeated attempts were made by the Israelis to capture the fortress, only to end in failure. Fortunately, Colonel David Marcus, an American member of Machal, volunteers from overseas, helped uncover another narrow path to Jerusalem. Under his direction, the path was hastily widened into a crude road, just in time to relieve the siege of Jerusalem before the first truce went into effect. By the time the truce began, both sides were exhausted. Under the terms of the ceasefire, neither side was supposed to reinforce their forces. The Swedish Count Bernadette was appointed as a mediator, but as was expected, the ceasefire agreement was violated, and both sides substantially reinforced their positions. During the ceasefire, a ship full of arms purchased by the Irgun arrived off Israel's coast. When the Irgun insisted on retaining some of its arms for its own use, Ben-Gurion ordered the army to seize the ship by force. Though the incident nearly caused a civil war, its ultimate effect was to make the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF, the only legitimate arms-bearing force in Israel. The truce was soon to expire. Aware of this, the Egyptians launched another assault against Kibbutz Negba. The attack was repulsed, and during this period the IDF achieved minor gains in the Negev region. The major activity included the capture of the Arab cities of Ramla and Lud in the heart of the new nation. While earlier in the war, Israel's policy towards the local Arabs was a mixed one, in these two cities, Arab residents were encouraged to board trucks and were transported to the Legion lines. The IDF also captured Nazareth and the other Galilee areas that had been in Arab hands. During the second ceasefire, Count Bernadette proposed a settlement that would give the whole Galilee to Israel, while giving the Negev desert to the Arabs. Jerusalem was to be internationalized. Both the Arabs and the Israelis categorically rejected the Bernadette plan, and the unlucky mediator was assassinated in Jerusalem by Jewish extremists on September 17, 1948. The second ceasefire ended with an Israeli attack on Egyptian positions. By this junction, the Israelis were equipped with more modern aircraft and armored vehicles. Israeli forces quickly seized key Egyptian positions and captured the Negev city of Beersheba, and soon opened up the road to Eilat, the southern tip of the country. A large Egyptian army was surrounded, but refused to surrender. In the final stages of the war, Israeli troops advanced as far as El Arish in the Sinai Desert. At that point, the British threatened to intervene, especially after Israel shot down 5 Egyptian planes during a single dogfight. Under British pressure, Israeli troops pulled back, and a ceasefire came into effect.
The war was over. Israel had been victorious against all odds, but the price was high. Over 6,000 Israelis lost their lives during the War of Independence, 1% of the population.
The armies of 5 other Arab nations have crossed our...
This is a depiction, about a 3-minute clip from the movie Cast a Giant Shadow, had Kirk Douglas and Yul Brynner and some others, in which they're discussing the inability at that moment of the war to break through into Jerusalem. The Jews of Jerusalem, as you just saw and heard, were starving, and the Arab armies effectively had cut off all access, all roads to Jerusalem, and they were essentially starving the people there to death. And the desperation was, how can we break through those lines and get supplies into Jerusalem?
Borders from 4 different directions.
We have no tanks, no artillery, and almost no air force to stop them.
We're getting arms, soon. Somehow for 1 week, you must hold them.
Hold them? What are you talking about? Look, you've all got to stop thinking like losers. Attack! Attack! Surprise and bluff are your major weapons.
Attack tanks? With what, noodle soup?
Look, I've been working over that new shipment of Jeeps that just came in, and I've got a...
Jeeps with no anti-tank weapons.
Improvised. We're fixing them up with machine guns, armor plate, and there are 4 anti-aircraft guns in Tel Aviv nobody knows we have.
Yes, but how would you use them?
Well, we're mounting them horizontally on half-tracks so they can fire straight ahead.
In Jerusalem?
Jerusalem? Well, the city's almost isolated. You can't hold it.
We should evacuate everyone. It will cost us 10 times as much to hold the city as it's worth.
How much is Jerusalem worth, Asher? What did it close at on Wall Street today? What's the market price of 100-foot frontage on Solomon's Temple?
But it won't be worth much when the desert's full of Egyptian tanks and you're wasting your arms trying to defend the impossible.
There'll be arms for the desert and arms for Jerusalem.
But you believe in miracles.
You came back, didn't you? David, you and Stone will take the Jeeps into the Negev and see what can be done at night to stop the Egyptian tanks, Asher. You and Ram will move your best Haganah and Palmach units to the road to Jerusalem. Find out what it'll take to break through to the city. You'll all report to me on what we have to do. Then Asher will explain to us why it cannot be done, and then we will do it. I called you back from the desert because things are not going well.
Egyptian tanks have been stopped. You've got Jaffa, Haifa, Acre. Don't worry. Things aren't so bad.
Mickey, it's been a disaster. Terrible disaster. The Arab Legion has moved into the fortress of Latron and cut the only supply road to Jerusalem.
The Arab Legion?
Our boys tried to break through yesterday and were slaughtered like cattle. Wheat fields are irrigated with their blood.
That's a real defense minister's speech. Now, what happened?
Hardly any artillery, not enough men, but most important of all, no centralized leadership. You're right. We have no high command. We have a committee. You know about the ceasefire? The United Nations requested a general truce to go into effect the morning of June 11th. We accepted? We don't want to see any more bloodshed on either side.
Well, I bet the Arabs have accepted. You know you can't break through to Jerusalem in that time.
When the ceasefire comes, the lines will be frozen. The city will have to surrender or be starved to death. We have 2 weeks. Less.
Look, we've been over all this. What the hell's so important about Jerusalem, militarily? Half the city's already fallen. Look, it just doesn't make sense to risk everything you've got just to save the other half.
Did it make sense for a fellow with a nice, steady job building pyramids to march his friends into the Red Sea? Mickey, Jerusalem is starving. 3 pieces of bread a week for the children, almost no water. Jerusalem was destroyed once by Nebuchadnezzar, a second time by Titus of Rome. Not again, Mickey, not again. Without Jerusalem, there is no Israel.
In 1947, the threat of all-out war loomed in Palestine. With limited experience commanding large units, flying fighter planes, or sailing battleships, the Jewish underground fighters were at a disadvantage against the invading Arab armies. Prevented by the British authorities from legally manufacturing or buying ammunition or building the infrastructure for a modern army, the temporary Jewish government in Palestine turned to the diaspora for help. Jews around the world answered the call and volunteered, putting their lives on hold, leaving behind home, family, and jobs to help their brothers in need.
I was not just an adventurer. I wasn't a soldier of fortune.
We were never never politically involved in this kind of Zionism or that kind of Zionism. And that didn't matter to us much. We just loved Israel.
Part of my motivation in becoming a Zionist, part of it was a sense of having a refuge where Jews could come if they wanted to and if they had to.
And Israel needed people who had war experience. Israel needed war supplies. Israel had literally nothing.
My mother, bless her, gave me a kiss and wished me good luck. I said, "You're doing the right thing, son." A kiss and out the door. Yeah.
At the end of the war, I was admitted to the Harvard Law School. We began to learn about the concentration camps, what really went on, and about the Jews trying to get out of Europe, to get into Palestine. And I, by sheer chance, grew up in the United States, nurtured, school, place to eat and sleep all the time, secure. And there was an imbalance here, a real imbalance. I had the good life and they had horror. It was an imbalance that had to be righted. I mean, we couldn't just sit in law school while this was going on. This was history being made. We didn't go back to our second year in law school, just didn't go back. They flew us down to Miami, the Palmach guys from New York, where they took us dockside, and there was this hulk. It was a boat that didn't inspire confidence. We prepared our ship, which carried 20 officers and men. We prepared this ship so that it could accept and safely carry 1,500 people. We took the ship to the coast of Italy to pick up our mapilim, and then I remember the mapilim coming from the shore. When you see human beings who have individual characteristics, they're not just concepts, they're real people, and there are the numbers, and they're Jews. They're like me, we're fellow Jews, and what they've been through. It was a profound experience.
There was a call out in South Africa by word of mouth to volunteer to come over and help the new state, because all the big Arab countries around us were just pouring in to destroy this tiny little fledgling state that had come about after 2,000 years. The Haganah people came to meet us, and they said, "You're going to take a boat with the new immigrants and you're going to sail across by boat." We got near to Haifa, and it was evening, and the boat was nearing the shores of Eretz Israel, and we saw the lights of Mahar Carmel coming on. And somebody, one of the people down below, started to sing Hatikva. And all of us stood on the deck as the boat approached Haifa, and we were all singing Hatikva. And then one of our boys said the prayer, Shechianu v'higianu lisman haseh. And all together we said Amen as the boat moved into Haifa. And there were tears in all our eyes. And we got off the boat. Everything was dark. And they interviewed me. And I told them about myself. And they said, of course you can be a nurse. We don't have nurses. You can be a nurse if you know something, even if you're willing. And they gave me instructions, and this lady, one of the chayrot, came and said, come on, I'll take you to where you have to go. She took me to the quarters where I would sleep that night. And she took my hand, and then she put her arm around me. And she said, don't be afraid. It's dark because of air raids. But you'll be taken care of, and you'll do something special for Eretz Israel. And I never saw this lady again, but she really gave me the courage.
I arrived in Israel, spring of 48, before the state of Israel was created. So we had a little ship with potatoes. And under the potatoes, we had Spanish Hispano 20-millimeter guns, new guns with grease. New stuff, new, alte Shech, alte Sachen. Finally got new stuff. But the point was, what are you going to do with the potatoes? They get rotten. And we got the guns, and then they sent me to Palmach the same day. As we moved south, we got involved with the Battle of Fallujah. We had a certain amount of chutzpah we should not have had. And when I saw the plans, I knew it was very chancy. We had 400 fighters. The Egyptian brigade consisted of almost 3,000 men. And it was raining all the time. And the troops were tired. And then we were ordered to attack. Pluga broke into the town, the village. Pluga bet. I heard my cousin saying that the Kval Kmat Beyodenu. He already had prisoners. Suddenly I got an order to go all the way around to Bet Jibrin because the situation was deteriorating. And it did. By the time I got there, on the other end, the battle is over. Puga Bet, my cousin, got wounded again, and my second in command that I sent was killed. Otherwise, he had another one or two other wounded or killed, I don't know. And Pruga Gimed, the religious company, got the brunt, and only 14 escaped. I never realized that there was no soldiers between us and Bet Romano, Tel Aviv. That was headquarters. There was nobody, because the rest of them were fighting in El Arish and all the other places. We stretched ourselves thin to the point. So I was basically the only koach left. The war was a difficult war.
I was a chemistry major. Israel had some guns, but they had no munitions. And they wanted to be able to manufacture bullets. So our mission was to develop a bullet from the material available to the Jews in Israel and to be able to get them back to them on time. At one point, there was an alarm, and we all scrambled, took all our papers and chemicals, put them away, and a whole set of other papers and chemicals. I looked about this whole thing, very strange. Turns out the FBI was coming. So they came, and they left. And of course they winked, They knew what it was all about, and we knew what it was all about. We weren't going to say anything. So as they left, everything went reverse. The stuff we're working on came out. Did we succeed? I think we did at the end. And we got the formula, and they were able to manufacture the bullets for the davedka.
We had to take a hill. How do we take a hill which is full of Egyptian infantry backed by artillery. 4:30 one morning, a surprise attack. We were halfway up the hill before they knew what was coming, and we took it. I think it was a bloody miracle. We took it. The next day, they sent up 4 guys with 2 Bezers. They were the big machine guns with bullets this big, that could pierce armor. And the Bezers got to work on the road and stopped the tanks and stopped the armor from coming through. They were just stuck there. And of course, they sent troops up every day, and they dive bombed us with Spitfires, which I got crazed about. Spitfires were defending us in London. That feeling of a homeland at last when nobody could kick you out. It was yours, and it was a marvelous feeling.
The first act of the newly established state was to abolish all restrictions on immigration. Between 1948 and 1951, over 700,000 Jewish immigrants streamed to the State of Israel, doubling its population.
Ben-Gurion happened to call me, says, we need fast action because we've opened the gates now. Ships are coming in every day, and we understand that you're familiar with housing. I want you to know we have no money. We got there, and the first thing, the next morning, we have a meeting set with Ben-Gurion. He's over there behind his desk in this little makeshift building in there, and he stands up behind the desk like this, and he puts out his arms, and he says, "New Isidore, where's the houses?" But people said Israel has no raw materials. There's no metals, there's no wood, there is no timber, there is no material to build housing with, so you're gonna have to import them. It just so happens that reinforced concrete, which is a brand new item, people know it was only being discovered or used when I was in college. And making reinforced concrete is a very simple operation, and anybody can do that, and you can put them to work, and all you need is one little machine, smaller than an automobile, and you can put it anywhere you want to make. Any town, any place you want, you put it, and as long as you're shoving it, put in some crushed rock and some sand and water and cement, that's reinforced concrete. We set up an industry, we made a design of the type of houses you'd see in California or Florida. They were setting new town for these people to go out and start inhabiting these towns.
Whatever I had to give, I wanted to give it to the Jewish people, and I knew that when I was having the best life possible, imaginable in Boston, successful in the practice of law, comfortable financially, everybody's happy and healthy. It's not what I want out of life.
You have to do things sometimes, even if it's done quietly, even if it's against the law, but there's a higher law we had to obey, and it worked out, thank God.
To be there in 48 and to be involved in the things we were involved in, we felt we were very lucky. To have missed that would have been, I think, rather sad.
2 things happened. I had a small part, an active part, in the creation of the State of Israel. But the biggest reason I remember that, because of my coming and getting involved, I happened to meet one of the nicest girls in the world, my wife.
The Haganah people who were escorting us, they didn't understand what I was doing. And one of the young men there, he came up to me and he said to me, "What do you think you're going to do in Israel? There's a war on. Don't you think it would be dangerous? Who gave you permission to be here?" So I said to him, "Ani ba mipnei sha'am shelcha ze ha'am sheli, v'ani ba la'azor." And that is why I'm coming to help you, because I want to be part of your people, because I am part of your people.
מי שברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב הוא יברך את חיילי צבא העומדים על משמר ארצנו וערי אלוקינו מגבול הלבנון ועד מדבר מצרים ומן הים הגדול עד לבוא באוויר ובים הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל ייתן השם את אויבינו הקמים עלינו ניגפים לפניהם הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור ויציל את חיילינו מכל צרה וצוקה ומכל נגע ומחלה וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם
הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל
יד ברצוננו תחתיהם ויעטרם בכתר ישועה ובעטרת ניצחון ויקוים בהם הכתוב ויקוים בהם הכתוב כי עמוני אלוקיכם ההולך עמכם יעשם לכם עם אויביכם להושיע אתכם ונאמר אמן. הוא יברך את חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל. הוא יברך את חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל.
I want to thank you all for being here today. This was a day of very special meaning to me, of course, and to all of us. We closed just now the way we do each Sunday in our series on the rise of Israel. We begin each Sunday with the Hatikva, and we close with the Mishaberach Avotenu, the prayer for the armed forces, the defense forces of Israel. And that's what you were listening to last. So again, thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day and wonderful 4th of July, as we thank God for having been given the opportunity to live in a country where we have every imaginable freedom as Jews, and to live in an era where we can fully experience that kind of freedom to be Jews, and at the same time to openly love Israel without being challenged on that. So we're very blessed. I remind you that on Thursday of this week, we begin the 3 weeks. This Thursday is Shiva Sar B'Tammuz.